Facebook.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to our LinkedIn Live. We're here today to talk about jobs beyond bedside. My name is Sara Fung. I'm a registered nurse, and I'm a founder of the RN Resume, and I have an amazing co-host today. I'm going to let him quickly introduce himself.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Connor. I am the founder of NurseRecruit, and I'm also a registered nurse in Ontario.
Yeah, so we're here today to talk about jobs beyond the bedside, aka more than med-surg. And this is not to throw any hate onto all you med-surg nurses out there. It's just to say that there are so many opportunities that we as nurses don't even know about. And I think I am a good person to talk about non-traditional jobs because I have held a lot of non-traditional jobs throughout my 17 years of nursing. I started out in the world of maternal child health, and I have done jobs as a prenatal educator. I've worked as a clinical research nurse. I have worked as a continuing education instructor. I then moved on to leadership where I was a clinical nurse specialist, professional practice specialist, professional practice clinician, and more recently now I'm an entrepreneur. So I help nurses find their dream jobs. And part of what we do here at the RN Resume is we provide digital services such as resume templates, cover letter templates. I have a resume course, and I also do one-to-one services for people interested in custom written resumes, cover letters, coaching, making sure your LinkedIn profile is up to date, and all those great things. And Connor actually does something very interesting as well. So I'm going to let him share a bit more about NurseRecruit.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. So NurseRecruit, we basically started this as a virtual platform to allow nurses, nursing students, new graduates, and allied health to come together and utilize different methods to explore career opportunities, learn about different job opportunities, such as the ones that we're presenting today in this webinar. And a little bit of background about myself. I started NurseRecruit while I was in nursing school. I took quite a leap and I went right into kind of entrepreneurship, and this is where we're at now with NurseRecruit. And we're excited to present some cool events that we're hosting in the upcoming months.
Yeah, I also forgot to mention that I'm a camp nurse. So that's more recently. I started camp nursing. And again, it was just taking a little step outside of the box and trying something I hadn't tried before. So as we're having this conversation, I want everyone listening to feel free to type questions in the chat because we're more than happy to answer any and all questions you have about how to get a non-traditional type job. We do have some tangible tools and takeaways for you. So hopefully this will help guide you in the right direction. I get a lot of questions actually about what kinds of skills are valuable, or, do I need to go back to school? So I would say, depending on what you're looking for, you likely have a lot of these transferable skills already from the bedside. But when you're thinking about how to find a job, especially something that you haven't done before, it's really about marketing yourself. And I know this makes a lot of nurses uncomfortable. I don't want to brag about myself. I don't know how to market myself. So a lot of it is actually thinking about the skills you already have and showing someone that you're able to take these skills and put them into a different setting, or that you're willing to do any and all training required for a new type of role. So I wanted to give some examples of skills that are valuable in non-bedside jobs. So the first one actually is computer skills. And I know this sounds kind of obvious, but if you can use Microsoft Office, meaning if you can use Word, PowerPoint, Outlook, a lot of hospitals already use Outlook as their email provider. So if you can literally send an email from your work account, that is a computer skill that you should highlight, and something that not everybody has, believe it or not. And even just things like using electronic charting like EMR systems and listing the different types of systems you can use are really valuable. Project management. So again, when we're thinking about these sort of skills that you have, they can be formal or informally learned. So in terms of project management, it could be something that you've done at work as part of your role. It could be something that you've done on a volunteer basis. It could even be something that you did when you were in school. And some other things you might want to think about is, how do you show your leadership skills? And if you haven't had a formal role in leadership or management, some other things you can think about are if you've ever been a charge nurse, if you've ever been a preceptor, if you have ever joined any committees or led any initiatives, even if you were not the main one on it, you were still part of that change. So these are things to think about. Quality improvement. Sorry, go ahead, Connor.
Oh yeah, no worries. Yeah, I just wanted to jump into.
Yeah,
I think this is also really important for nursing students as well. When you're in school, join different clubs and everything like nursing student associations. It's a great way to build up some of these skills to really get started. And then once you're in the workplace, it's also an awesome way to learn all these skills that Sarah's presented to you guys today.
Yeah. So as a student, I think you definitely have a lot of opportunities. It can be hard as a student sometimes because you feel like I'm just trying to keep my head above water, but this is really the time to shine before all the responsibilities of life like fall down onto your plate. So yeah, definitely take advantage. And like you and I were talking before this webinar, Connor, when you're a student, you often have discounted rates to associations,
Yes.
right? And to other registrations. Like as a student, when you sign up for conferences, usually it's like half price, right? So take advantage of these opportunities. And often you do get some grace period of maybe a year after graduation and you're still considered a student or a new grad. Yeah.
There's definitely a lot of resources for that too. And like as Farah mentioned too in the comments, definitely joining those professional organizations is super important. There are also ways to stay even more connected with nurses across your province, territory, state, wherever you are. It allows you to open up additional opportunities as well too.
Yeah, and if you have a special area of interest, there's probably a group out there or association out there that you can join as well. So sometimes it's just a matter of talking to people and figuring out where these opportunities are. One thing I wanted to mention also, if you have any experience in quality improvement, again, it doesn't have to be necessarily formal, but like, let's say you got involved in an initiative at work to help reduce falls. You could translate that into something that you did as quality improvement on your resume. So just really thinking outside the box about these things that we do every day as nurses, but unless you actually state it, it's not like someone reading your resume necessarily knows that you did it, right? You know you did it, and the people that you work with know it, but it doesn't mean that a recruiter will know what that means, especially if they don't have a healthcare background. Some other things I wanted to mention are staff and patient education. Again, something that most of us nurses can do, but it is a skill that's worth highlighting. If you have had any experience with reimbursement, insurance, even resource allocation, and really what that means is like making sure that your unit is well stocked, or do you ever do ordering for supplies? These are all things that you can mention if you're looking for a job away from the bedside. And finally, if you've worked in management, any sort of financial management or budgeting will be helpful in a role that you could explore for sure.
These are some really great different skills that you can highlight, Sarah. I do want to ask you a question though, since you do a lot on resumes. What are some few tips on making your resume stand out more?
Yeah, that's a good question because I think a lot of nurses have trouble with this. When you think about writing your resume, it's actually like an art and a science. So the art piece is that you want it aesthetically to look nice, right? But sometimes we think like that means it has to be really fancy. It actually needs to be more clean, basic, and simple, I would say, for when you apply for a job on a website. You're going through something called an applicant tracking system. So essentially, it's software that scans your resume for certain keywords and skills and compares it to the job posting. And it will assign you a rank based on how closely you match that job posting. So if you have a really fancy, complicated layout, like the 2-column resumes that a lot of people like to use, that can actually interfere with how the reader can read out these keywords. So I would say like, just make sure it's easy to read and easy to find the information that you want to get across. And you really want to focus more on the content more than anything else. So when we talk about how to write a resume, it's more like, think about the goal of a resume, right? So the only goal of your resume should be to get an interview. It's not to get a job, it's to get an interview. And then at the interview, that's where you're really going to sell yourself. So on a resume, let's say you're looking for a work from home job, let's say, you really want to focus on computer skills versus your technical skills, because it's not going to matter anymore if you can draw blood, if you can start an IV, if you can do wound care. It's going to be like, can you manage putting together documents? Do you know how to sign into Zoom meetings? Like that kind of thing is more going to be your day to day. And so really just trying to emphasize that more than your clinical skills, although they are important, they're not going to be as important in a different type of role. And then just things like keeping fonts and like keep the whole layout really consistent. I think that would be another thing. And although we do want to highlight skills at a certain point, if it's longer than, I would say, if it's longer than 3 pages, it's most likely not getting read. So you really want to condense it down. 2 pages is ideal. I think that it doesn't have to be 1 page for sure, but certainly aim for something to be concise.
I have another question for you too, Sarah. So I see a lot of people utilize LinkedIn and add that into their resume. Do you see that quite often with nurses, or?
So no, I don't see that, but I think it is something that nurses should do. So just going back to my point about making your resume shorter, if you do feel like there are other experiences, other skills you want to emphasize, what I would recommend is putting all of that on your LinkedIn profile. And then right at the top where you have your contact information, you could put a hyperlink to your LinkedIn profile. Because then if someone really wants to know more about you, they can click on that and they can see all your experience. And the other thing that I've heard from recruiters is that they tend to look you up and they will look at your LinkedIn profile and make sure it matches your resume. So also making sure that both are up to date and consistent in terms of the dates would be important. So that is something I have heard recruiters do.
That's awesome.
I just wanted to go through some of the comments. Farah, hi Farah. Farah is someone who also is in the careers space, and she's also an entrepreneur. She says, "Hi Connor, great tips. And if you are join your nursing student state association if you're in the States. Wish I knew more about this when I was a student, definitely. And yes to joining committees such as Nursing Practice Council." Many job descriptions are mentioning AI. So what I have heard actually is, at least in Canada, the ATS system is not using AI per se yet, but that could change. So definitely keep that in mind. Is your resume is kind of the process by which it gets to the recruiter is somewhat automated, but it still goes through. So if and when you do get a rejection email, it is still from a person. So, just keep that in mind, that the system doesn't reject you. It still puts you through. It's just whether you end up at the top, middle, or bottom of that list for the recruiter. That's really where the resume comes into play. She says, "Lord, do not use colors." Yes. Do not use
100%,
colors. Yeah. Number one, they can be distracting. Number two, I have never worked anywhere that has a color printer. So when someone goes to print off your resume, if it's like a yellow or an orange, it's going to show up a really light color and make it hard to read. And anything that's harder for the person hiring you may mean that you don't make it through. So if you do want to use a color, I would suggest like a navy blue or something kind of dark, but you don't have to. Like black and white is more than fine.
I added a couple comments here too.
Yeah, you did. Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
the AI is huge, definitely.
Super important, yeah.
Yeah, and I know, Connor, you have a special interest in innovation as well in tech. So
Yes, I do, yeah.
Yeah, so that's definitely another potential opportunity for Beyond the Bedside. Keep it simple, easy to read. I have this test for resumes, and I feel like if you're running on a treadmill, you know how you're bouncing up and down. If you can, if you can pick up the important information while you're running on a treadmill within 7 seconds, because that's how long usually recruiters read a resume for, then you pass the test. And maybe this is something you can even try yourself. So if the information is kind of buried under a job description, it really needs to be pulled out. It needs to be highlighted visually. You need to move it to the top. Maybe you mention it in your cover letter. So just something to make it very obvious what it is you bring to the table, because it is true that resumes get scanned for maybe 7 seconds before someone decides if they're going to keep reading or put it down. Yes, nurses should be on LinkedIn. We're holding this event on LinkedIn as well as Facebook, but definitely if you are not on LinkedIn, it is the place to be because 99% of all recruiters are on LinkedIn every day looking for nurses. So, especially if you're looking to move away from the bedside or look for a job in another organization, it's really more about marketing yourself and less about internally transferring or your years of experience.
I definitely can attest to that too. Joining LinkedIn was a huge part for me. I wasn't very active on LinkedIn. I think I started my first account in 2018. It
Mhm.
wasn't until a couple months ago when I met Sarah, Fair, and a couple other nurses where I saw how active they were. I decided to start doing the same, and it really does show results. So it's a great way to kind of market yourself as a tool as well.
Mm-hmm. And Darlene says part of what you mentioned is the importance of committee work or QCI, or which is continuous quality improvement. Extending your nursing skills by working in a variety of different units is very valuable. And over the years, experience in different units shows your passion to grow as a nurse and may positively contribute to future endeavors. What is your recommendation on what looks appropriate on a resume for the minimum amount of time in a nursing position? Um, that's a good question. I don't know if there's a hard and fast rule around it. I think it depends on your overall years of experience too. Like if you have been a nurse for a long time and let's say you had a couple jobs that were just a few months, it's probably okay to leave it off. But if you're a new grad and you've had short stints here and there, and if you remove them, then either you don't have work experience or it highlights a gap, I would still include it. And for example, if it's a contract position, you may want to put in brackets contract. So someone looking at your work history understands why it was only like 3 or 4 months. You don't have to explain it, but certainly it does help fill in the blanks for recruiters. I would say don't include it if it's less than a month for sure, because that will raise some red flags. But I think it's okay to have multiple jobs for short durations because in this day and age, people don't stay at jobs anymore for 10 or 20 years. It's not common. If by keeping the jobs on, it shows progression or it shows diversity in your career, I think that's a good idea.
I can definitely talk about that too a little bit. When I started in nursing school, I took on a couple student jobs, and one of them was like a clinical extern, public health nurse injector. So we were giving COVID vaccinations out. And that was just a very short period, but I still included it because for me, it was a great way to showcase some skills and experience that I developed throughout nursing school while applying to a new grad job as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a good idea. And Ferris says 94% of recruiters will look at your LinkedIn profile. So it's definitely worth having. And if you don't have a profile, I think you're missing out, right? Because there's a chance that
Oh, yeah.
someone may want to message you on LinkedIn, but if you're not there, then they can't do that. Um, using A oh, so
Yes,
Fairmont
yeah.
using AI is a skill. Yes. Some applications are asking if they can use AI to review your resume, which is interesting. Okay.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's awesome. That's a new kind of thing.
Farah started being active on LinkedIn in 2021. Wish I would have taken advantage of LinkedIn early on. Yeah. And I do hear from recruiters a lot that they find nurses, but there's no work history there, or they've
Yeah,
just put down they work at a certain hospital, but they don't say what units. And so if they're looking for a specialized role, let's say a wound care nurse, they don't know that if it's not there.
exactly. Yeah. I think
Yeah.
updating your profile is key, making sure you have some sort of image on there. All those small steps are really important to showcase to recruiters as well.
So Connor, I have a question for you now.
For sure.
So, for all of these out of the box roles, how have you found them? And do you have any recommendations on how nurses can find beyond bedside roles?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's quite a few different ways that you can find beyond bedside roles. Some of the ones that I found early on were actually through different communities that I'm a part of that have different highlighting roles and different kind of unique nursing opportunities. You can also meet some mentors in them, and they've shared different roles with me as well. Through NurseRecruit ourselves, we actually are doing these virtual job fairs. So we're going to be hosting one in May with the RN resume. I'm super excited about it. It'll be on May 15th. It's the Beyond Bedside Job Fair. It'll be a great way to kind of see different roles. We also are introducing our own job board technology, which I'm super excited to be rolling out in the next month or so. It'll be a great way to kind of filter out different roles out there that you can see the different levels of experience and based on the criterias of job levels, education needed, and then types of areas that you want to go into, if it's a contract position or part-time. There's definitely a lot of different ways like that. I think, Sarah, if you want to add on to it a little bit, I know you've got some different ways as well.
Yeah, I actually run a Facebook group. It's called Remote and Non-Traditional Jobs, Remote and Non-Traditional Jobs Canada. And so I honestly, for the jobs that I post in that group, I would say most of them are from LinkedIn. So what I usually suggest is like, rather than looking for specific jobs, identify some companies that hire non-traditional roles and follow them or sign up for job alerts, because if you know a certain company mainly hires these types of roles, then that's what you should really target in on versus Googling every day, like case management. Like find those companies that you know you want to work for and try to like follow them on LinkedIn, build relationships with the people that work there. Like that's probably your best bet. I know that for one of my non-traditional jobs, I found it on LinkedIn. Wasn't a company I'd heard of before, but I thought, you know what, I'm just going to apply because I need a change. And someone contacted me the next day and it kind of went from there. But if it wasn't for LinkedIn, I would have never heard of this company before. And I think sometimes like we are in our own little worlds and we know of the 4 to 5 hospitals in your area that you want to work for, but sometimes it's just looking a little bit beyond that. And it is okay to even have a job that doesn't have the word nurse in it, but still be using your nursing skills every day.
I think there's more and more of those jobs popping up as well. You'll see the ones where they don't necessarily require you to be a registered nurse, but it is definitely an asset to have that. There's a lot of new opportunities. LinkedIn is so important as well, I think. I think that we were talking about the other day, we found quite a few opportunities on LinkedIn that are available through different agencies and different companies right now for nurses. So
yeah, and the good thing about LinkedIn
that
is that you can sign up for job alerts. So rather than going to the same 4 or 5 websites every day or every week, you can just put in what you are looking for in terms of job title, location, whether you want to work from home or work hybrid. You put all that in there and you can either get an email or a notification every day. So that's what I've done to identify jobs that I think might be good for my Facebook group or for my clients. And that's something that kind of automates it and saves you time too. And then over time, LinkedIn gets to know what your preferences are, and you'll notice after a while, it might start suggesting jobs to you. So that's kind of how it works, is that you put in what you're looking for and it will start suggesting jobs that you might not have otherwise thought about. And I don't work for LinkedIn. Yeah. I'm not getting anything out of this. I just want to make that
clear. Neither of us work for LinkedIn yet.
No, we don't get anything out of it, but I do think you will if you're not on it and you're not using it to its full capability. So other things to share, maybe we could talk about some types of non-bedside roles, because I know that sometimes if you've only been at bedside, you may not even know what's out there, or you might even like only know of 1 or 2 people who have left the bedside. Yeah.
I think it's a burning question we get asked quite a lot. So
yeah.
Sarah,
and so
do you want to
Connor,
share some
you mentioned that you did some public health vaccinations.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in the height of COVID, as a student, I was doing a public health nursing student role where I was doing different vaccinations for COVID and the flu, I believe, as well. We were doing both of those. I worked at a mass vaccination center that it was a really cool experience, and it allowed me to get a lot of practice in for injections as a nursing student, which was really exciting for me. And I think it really helped me carry my resume to other jobs as well. So it's a good opportunity to get into. I know public health, we've been finding that there's not as many roles out there, but there are still roles. We found a couple yesterday on LinkedIn, so it's definitely there. Just apply away and see if you can get into that. Another opportunity that's really unique too is a lot of policy management. There's a lot of new roles opening up for policy. I myself am in school for global health policy. It's something that I've carried, and I actually learned it from a group that I was part of again. So I found a couple of nurses doing it, and I decided I wanted to go into that role as well.
Yeah, and I think that there are lots, I would say there's broad categories too of non-traditional.
So much, yes.
Yeah, so the first one would be if you still want to do direct patient care, but let's say you don't want to do the 12-hour shifts, you don't want to do the nights and weekends, you can find opportunities in clinics, in primary care, in ambulatory care that will still fill your bucket of being able to work with patients. You might also want to look into home and community care. If you think, I want something a little bit slower paced where I have more time to focus on bonding with my patients and getting to know them and their families, that might be another option for you. Working in public health, as Connor mentioned, is always an option. working as a project manager, either in healthcare or outside of healthcare would be another option. I think as nurses, we have a lot of skills when it comes to multitasking, working under pressure, getting along with different groups of people, conflict resolution. Like these skills we all have, and sometimes we take for granted. But when you, if you leave the bedside, you'll notice that people have so much respect for you because you've been providing direct patient care, and this is something that a lot of people don't have any perspective on. You could also work in education. So whether it be educating other nurses or patients, providing training courses, these are all things you can do. So even being a course instructor at a university or a clinical instructor, educating nursing students on what it means to work on the unit. There are jobs in women's health. Like I used to work as a prenatal educator. I thought it was a great role. I really enjoyed it. You could work as a lactation consultant if that's something that you are already specialized in. And if you really want to get off the beaten path, camp nursing, I think, is a really fun opportunity where you can enjoy the camp as well and just a different environment. Like prior to being a camp nurse, I'd never looked after teenagers. So that was kind of interesting. And the types of injuries they experience and, you know, their perspective on their health has been really eye-opening to me. And then just things like working in the private sector. So if you want to work for a medical device company, to be a device rep. If you want to work in pharmaceuticals, to be a rep for pharmaceuticals. Like there's so much you can do. And I know Connor has some ideas about nursing innovation too. Like
Yes, yeah.
I get a lot of questions about nursing informatics. So that's another really big growing field is informatics and what do we do about charting and like just data in general.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different opportunities as well in like nursing innovation, nursing informatics, anything like in the tech world. You have a lot of skills. You've learned a lot through your experience at Bedside, through nursing school, and you're able to apply those to larger companies that are working on healthcare focused areas within their companies. And it's a great role to kind of take on. And it's even something that you can do as yourself, creating your own business. If you find a unique niche in industry, kind of like me and Sarah have, and
Mhm.
like it's a great way to kind of apply those opportunities and create a new one for yourself as well, using that experience that you do have.
Yeah. So Darlene mentioned some other jobs, outpost nursing. I know Darlene has done some outpost
Yes, yeah.
nursing. And by the way, Darlene is going to be speaking at our job fair. And so we're really excited about that. She's had a lot of non-traditional roles. Cruise nursing. I actually have a
I want
friend.
to do that.
I have a friend who works on the Disney Cruise Line as a cruise ship
Oh,
nurse.
wow.
And she's been doing this for a long time. So I think she likes it. Travel
That's
nursing
awesome.
definitely are other options. So Angela has a question. I want to get into project management and curious how to apply with limited experience. Take a course. So I have I have a certification in project management. It's called the CAPM, which is Certified Associate in Project Management. There's also the PMP, which is the gold standard, which is Project Management Professional, I think it's called. But I would say if you have limited experience, it's about translating your experience. So any sort of informal project management roles you've had, you should really emphasize that. If you have been part of any sort of quality improvement, even if it wasn't for the whole project, you can still talk about that. Um, there are courses you can take to prepare for these exams that are very affordable. So if you want to look at Coursera or Udemy, you can take courses that give you the contact hours that are very affordable. And so when I was preparing for the CAPM, I did a course that was, I think it gave me 20 or 25 education hours, which was required, which cost $12.99. And I don't mean $1,200. I mean literally $12.99, because when I applied
That's
for
really good.
reimbursement, my boss thought I meant $1,200. I was like, oh no, it's $12.99. He's like, what? So definitely think outside the box. If you don't have the funds but you have the time, it's definitely doable. If you don't have the time but you have the funds, I'm sure there are crash courses you can take. So just get really
Exactly.
creative with what you want. And it might just be, joining as many committees as you can to get that experience, knowing that eventually you can apply it to a formal project management role. So Farah says, entrepreneurship. Yes, nurses
Yes.
making money moves. So if anyone out there is interested in entrepreneurship, Connor has done it. I have done it. I've actually got 2 businesses going right now. So it's definitely doable. It's just, taking a little risk and knowing that you have
It
to
is, yeah.
experiment, that making mistakes is okay, and that you will get there if that's what you want.
Exactly. It's definitely a really fulfilling role. I'm excited that I went into this right out of nursing school, which isn't, I wouldn't say normal, but it's something that I was really interested in and piecing together business tech and healthcare in general. And I think
Mhm.
nursing is one of those roles that you can utilize different areas of different fields to put it together. And that's how I got to the point that I'm at now. And we're going
Mhm.
through a lot of different phases, and it's a lot of exciting stuff that's happening.
Yeah, I kind of wish that when I graduated, I had someone like you to look up to because
Oh, yeah.
obviously I'm not a new grad, but I just was scared for a long time because I didn't know anyone who had done it. I certainly didn't know any nurses who had done it, and I didn't even know how to get started. And back then, my first business venture, I guess, I didn't even know like how to use social media, and I didn't really have a network. So I learned something from it. It wasn't successful,
Yes, yeah.
but definitely got my feet wet and got me thinking about it. And I was a big fan of watching Dragon's Den. That was like a huge source
Oh,
of
me too. Yeah,
inspiration for
yeah.
me. So, if you're in Canada, Dragon's Den, if you're in the States, Shark Tank, I love
Yeah.
both of those shows.
And we've seen a couple nurses on those shows already too, with some scrub companies and everything. So the potential is out there and it's unlimited. So take it and go with it, I would say.
I think I saw Nurse John was on it, right? Was he
He
on it?
was, yeah, it
Yeah,
was
for
their
Scrub Company.
scrub company. Yeah.
Cool.
There's
Um,
lots of potential. Maybe one day one of us will be on there too.
I was actually thinking about that for you maybe one day, or someone watching should go
We'll
on and
see.
let us know.
I'll
So
definitely be sharing if I do.
So we have a couple comments. Currently in healthcare project management and doing the opposite transition of becoming an RN. Cool. We
That's
definitely,
awesome.
yeah, definitely need more RNs. And someone says nursing is the most versatile career path. So I definitely agree.
100%. Yes.
Farah wants to know what 2 businesses. So I have the RN resume, but I'm also the co-host of the Gritty Nurse podcast, and we have a book coming out April 2nd, and we do things like speaking engagements and sponsorships. So that's a whole nother world in itself.
Oh yeah, we completely missed that part. Speaking engagements is the whole thing.
Yeah, so there's like honestly, you can do whatever you want. And I think that as a new grad, I didn't know that. So one of the reasons we titled this talk More Than Med Surg is because when I graduated, I was told you graduate from nursing school, get a job full time at the hospital, work in med surg because that's where you're going to really build your skills, and then keep working until you retire. And I don't know if that is the exact narrative being told to nursing students, but certainly med surg is still one of them. I've talked to many of my clients who did just that and they regret it because they actually wanted to go into things like public health or research
Yeah.
and were talked out of it. And if you want to go into med surg, I think that is an amazing decision.
It's a
I just don't
specialty
want
in
anyone
itself
to
too.
think like you have to do it because someone told
Yeah,
you that you
yeah.
have to do it. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think it's important to highlight that med surg is a specialty in itself. It's something that if you're really interested in going into, 100% go to it. It is a great base for foundation of different nursing skills, but there is other opportunities out there. For myself, I went right from nursing school to entrepreneurship to also being in an ICU. I decided that was the pathway. I know it's crazy pathway, but that was
So
kind of
you
what I
did
was
the
interested in.
entrepreneurship first and then decided to
Yes,
go
yeah.
IT?
And I decided to go into the ICU. Yeah. I did it as my last placement when I was in school. I loved it. And I saw that there was quite a few hospitals that have pathways for new grads to go into the ICU. So I decided to try and embark on one of those. And this is where I'm at now. So I'm super happy about it.
Yeah, that's amazing. Like I think it just shows you how diverse it can be. And I hate
Yes.
it when people say that, oh, if you do this, you're gonna lose your skills. It's like, no, you're just gonna gain new skills. You're never
You can pick
losing
them back up.
skills.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're never
Oh,
losing
yeah.
skills as a nurse. As long as you're working, you are developing skills. And maybe, okay, maybe you haven't drawn blood for like a year, but I almost feel like it's like riding a bike. Like you'll get rusty, but you'll never
Yeah,
totally
exactly.
forget. Yeah.
That's definitely something that worried me because out of nursing school, I went right into entrepreneurship. A couple opportunities presented themselves, and there was something I couldn't just let go. So I decided to do that. And then going back into nursing, I was very worried about, oh, am I going to remember any of my skills? Am I going to be able to pick up everything again? And so far, it's been really great. Like I'm learning quite a lot. And I think
Mhm.
too, like every day or week that you're in nursing, you're learning a new skill, you're learning something or improving on a skill. So I think that's really important to remember too, and it'll always come back to you. It's like second nature now. So
Yeah, yeah. And I know there is a worry among some nurses in terms of maintaining their licensure. But where
Yes.
I live, the question when you renew your license every year is, have you in some way used your nursing knowledge, skill, and judgment? And it even says there specifically it could be in roles such as leadership or where you're making changes in the healthcare system. So it's really up to you to identify if you are still meeting that need. And again, this may be different in different countries, but for where I am, that's what they ask you. So, and you don't have to be working with the title nurse to be able to show that. I've spoken to
Exactly.
nurses that work in like the legal field, and they're like, I use my skills every day as a nurse because I deal with accident victims and I need to understand, you know, the anatomy or the reasoning behind like when someone gets injured, what that involves. So yeah, I would say you're still using it every day.
Oh,
Um,
100%.
Darlene says, I've heard great feedback from cruise ship nurses. If you are interested, stay current in providing patient care, get your ACLS, BLS, and emergency nursing is a highly recommended skill. And Farah is mentioning an association called National Nurses in Business Association. She spoke at the conference last year. Definitely
Oh,
we
that's
need
awesome.
to, yeah, we need to look into that and look
Yeah, we
into
do. Yeah.
conferences. Look into conferences. I think just as a
Yes.
general statement to all nurses, it's a really great way to see what else is out there and more importantly to meet people that you might not otherwise talk to, even if it's virtual. So our fair is virtual, but it's really cool because you have it's like virtual reality. Like you have little avatars and you can
It's
go to different
awesome. Yeah.
rooms. It's really cool. So I'm super excited. Someone says Nurse John is so funny. He is. Yeah, so if anybody wants to put links into the chat, if you have something to share, Farah, feel free to put the link to your website or your book, and we'd be happy to have people purchase it. And Farah's instructor laughed at her and said, I'd never be an emergency nurse. And she said, hell's no, watch me. Good motivation.
That's awesome. Yeah. I remember I was actually at a meeting with Farah, and this is one of the things she highlighted. And I think it's so important. Like, whatever people tell you, it's not always something you have to do. You can follow your own path and create your own path, just like
Mhm.
Farah did. And look where she is now. It's amazing.
Yeah, and one of the things is like I think as nurses we feel like we have to ask permission to do things, but sometimes you just need to do them. Like I'm not saying for every situation, but for a lot of them you just need to give yourself permission to do it. So someone said excited to go into med surg and ICU, but I agree the sky is the limit for nursing. Absolutely.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's like riding a bike. And there's no linear or set path required. Follow your passion. So we're just going to put the link up again. If you did want to register for the job fair, it's completely free of charge for anyone who wants to attend, who is a job seeker. And you just go to the website, nurserecruit.ca/beyond bedside 24. There's going to be some awesome prizes. So Connor and I have
Oh,
decided
yeah.
we're going to give away lots of cool things. And one of them being a
We
chance to
are.
win an Amazon gift card. I know everyone loves Amazon. We're also going to be giving lots of cool discounts, and I've got lots of digital projects I want to share with you guys. There are going to be employers there that you can actually talk to and get to know more about their companies and what kinds of skills you need to work at these companies.
Yeah.
You don't have to be an experienced nurse to come. You don't have to have any sort of experience in beyond bedside nursing. You know, it's open to everyone, whether you're in Canada or the States or even internationally. We just want everyone to come and learn.
Exactly. This is an opportunity for you to explore, connect with recruiters, attend some workshops. We'll have some different things going on. I know Darlene will be attending as well and speaking, and you'll also get to learn a little bit more about her company as well, which will be really awesome too. We also have Futurepreneur coming, so if you want to learn about how to start your own business, they're going to be one of the go-tos. That's where I started my kind of company, and I went right through them, and that's where we ended up, and this is where we are now. So it's a great way to kind of learn from them, and I think that'll be really awesome to see all the opportunities that you can find.
And Darlene wants to know what others here are doing that is non-traditional. So I think that one of the things that had come to realize is that there's no actual set official definition for what a non-traditional nursing role is. So it could be anything that's non-shift work. It could be anything that's not in a hospital. It could be anything that you don't really typically think of as a nursing job. So it's really open. Like we're just opening it up to everyone. Some of the other speakers we're going to have are people that are financial planners, because I think as nurses we're really good at looking after other people, but not necessarily ourselves, and not always our money. And so you work so hard for your paycheck, you want to make sure that you know what to do with that money afterwards. We're going to be actually having Dr. Lee Chapman. She's the Chief Nursing Officer of Canada. She'll be attending and giving some opening remarks. So lots of cool people coming and lots of special discounts. If you do sign up, you will have access to everything for, is it 30 days afterwards?
30 days
like
after,
some of
yes.
Yeah, some of the resources will be available to you. And so if anyone wants more information, Connor and I will put the links to our email newsletters. So when you sign up for my email newsletter, you'll get a free resume checklist. You'll get a document with 70 plus non-traditional nursing jobs, just to give you ideas. You'll get access to a video on how to find non-traditional jobs. So Connor has just put it in
Just put them in the chat, yeah.
Yeah, so that's the link to mine. Also, if you do sign up for my email list and you want to purchase a one-on-one service, it's a 15% discount if you're on my newsletter. This is Connor's here, NurseRecruit. Someone has a question for you, Connor.
Oh, awesome. Okay, let me see.
Can you see it, or do you want me to read it out?
Yes, if you don't mind reading it. Yeah, sure.
Okay.
It's a little small on my screen.
Okay, so Mara wants to know, I graduated nursing school almost a year ago, and I've been working in a non-nursing job. I'm starting to apply to jobs now, but I'm wondering, did you find that when you applied to the ICU after taking time off from clinical nursing, that hiring managers questioned this or saw it as a challenge in comparison to newer graduates? I'm also thinking of applying to hospitals offering sponsorships, hopefully in the OR or PACU.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, so to answer that question, yes, I did see a little bit of that, especially because I had that break where I kind of started my entrepreneurial journey as well. They questioned like my clinical skills, but I did have some really great references that were able to back me up and showcase how well I did in school and how I was able to pick up skills fast enough. I think that's a really important part. So getting your references together will be really a great way to kind of showcase that and show your abilities. But at the same time, too, I think there's a lot of programs that hospitals are offering now, especially in larger cities, where you can do ICU and go through a course, go through a longer orientation. I know for me, my orientation lasts 6 months, which is quite long for a nursing student to be going into, but it's definitely a great way for me to kind of pick up those skills again and feel comfortable with what I'm doing. Because yes, the ICU is definitely a high acuity environment. You need to be comfortable with what you're taking care of with your patients, and I think that getting that extra time will be super important as well for learning. But just keep trying and keep applying and look for those unique opportunities as well. There will be some that are out there.
Okay, amazing. If anyone else has any questions, we're happy to answer them. Let's see if there's anything else we should share. Yeah, so if you can't make it to the event, but you've registered, then you'll still have access to the job board and you can watch recordings, because part of the job fair is that every employer that signs up is going to have a booth. So you can literally go up and talk to people at the booth. But we also have little workshops. Every employer is going to have resources for you, whether that's like a document or a video you can watch. We also have a speaking schedule that people are going to be speaking about certain topics. And we're going to be having some panel discussions as well. And yeah, it's going to be really cool. So I just hope that everyone joins. And like I said, it's free of charge, and there's going to be lots of really cool things. It's definitely more dynamic than a Zoom meeting. So you're going to be seeing lots of different places.
Oh yeah, it'll be an awesome platform.
Yeah.
We got another question here. What do you think about resilience? Oh, Sarah, do you want to start with this one?
Well, I mean, I'm not sure if I love the word resilience, but I think that we've been through a lot as nurses over the past few years. And 100%. It's really important that we use some of these skills that we've learned. So I learned how to take care of patients and how to advocate for patients when I was in nursing school. So I think this is our opportunity to transfer these skills to ourselves and really prioritize taking care of yourself and advocating for yourself, especially if you're in an unsafe situation, right? I think that's really important that we advocate for ourselves and push back when possible, because really, if you're in an unsafe situation, it's going to be unsafe for the patient. And what we really want to do as nurses is provide optimal patient care.
Exactly.
So it does help to be resilient, but I don't know if that's something that I don't know if it's something that everyone should aspire to, because we've all been through a lot.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a really important thing to highlight there. I think too, like from the entrepreneurial side too, if you are looking to start your own nursing business, it's definitely not going to be an easy thing that just comes in a snap. It's been over a year for me now, and I'm still learning lots. And I'm sure Sarah can attest to this as well, and everyone else in the chat can.
Hmm.
It's a really important thing to be somewhat resilient and to be able to have that where you can pick up your head and go on to the next day. That's really important too.
And I think as nurses, we're already good at that. So when people think
We
about
are, yes,
entrepreneurship, it's
100%.
like think about how long it took you to become a nurse. It probably was a minimum of 2 years, maybe four, depending on which route you went. So if it took me, for example, 4 years to actually get my license, then I can't expect to just start a business and have it making like six
Exactly.
figures, right? So it takes time. I started the RN resume in 2019. It wasn't called the RN resume at first. It was something else because I didn't think there were enough nurses that needed help. So it took a while of evolution and doing this alongside my full-time job to know if it was going to be a business. And so just think about it that way. Like it's going to take time, just like it takes time to be a nurse. Even when you're a new grad nurse, you're still learning all the time and making mistakes, and that's okay. It's the same with entrepreneurship. And,
Exactly. Yeah.
I just want everyone to find your tribe. I think that's one other thing I want to say. If you're looking to be an entrepreneur or you're looking for a job away from the bedside, is really find your tribe, because they're out there. It's just that you need to make some effort to find them and not feel so alone. So, for example, I do have a group called Nurses Breaking Free, which is aimed at helping nurses find non-traditional, like non-bedside jobs. And it's been really helpful for those members to learn not just from me, but from each other about what it takes to make that change.
Exactly. I think that's super important.
Yeah, and you definitely need resiliency as an entrepreneur for sure. I think also
Yes. Yeah.
you need to be in a good headspace too. So mentally, you just need to be able to know that things are unpredictable and not everything. Like I guess one thing I was thinking about today is like if you're the kind of person that needs a paycheck every 2 weeks and it needs to be the same amount and you need there not to be any variation, then that will be something you'll have to get used to for sure.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so if there aren't any other questions, Connor and I will put our contact information about how you can reach out to us, or you're more than welcome to find us on LinkedIn if you do have any other questions about finding different types of nursing jobs. So thanks everyone for listening, and hope to see you at the job fair May 15th.